My husband is the Prince of Junbei, who hid his identity and lived a shamelessly intimate married life with me for 3 years in a remote town. Later, he lied to me, saying he was going on a business trip, but in reality, he led his troops north to battle. What he didn't know was that as soon as he left, I died right after. Half a year later, a gold paper shop suddenly appeared in the capital, specializing in the task of burning paper offerings for others at graves. That night at the third watch, I was burning paper offerings at a grave for the deceased wife of a nobleman. As I continued burning, a familiar figure suddenly appeared by the grave. I took a closer look. Heavens above, how come this wild ghost at the grave looks just like my cheap husband? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. The sudden rain had just ceased. After finishing, my husband gently held me in his arms and asked, "What would you do if one day I were gone?" Leaning against his chest, I asked him blankly, "Where are you going, husband? Just tell me, what would you do?" I answered him half jokingly and half seriously, "Then I would take all the family wealth and live a carefree, happy life." What my husband didn't know was that every word I said came from the bottom of my heart. He is the Prince of Junbei, and I am the bandit leader who has been hunted by the Prince of Junbei for 3 years. If I ever regain my freedom one day, I will surely take all his wealth and live a life of luxury with my brothers. Upon hearing this, my husband actually laughed, pinched the soft flesh at my waist, and then, in a rather good mood, pulled me into his embrace. "Would you like to go again?" "What?" Before I could react, he grabbed my waist and started another round of torment, not letting me go until dawn. Early the next morning, when I woke up, my husband had already changed into a fresh set of clothes. Unlike his usual simple attire, the fabric of his garments now looked rather luxurious. Is he about to resume his identity as the Prince of the Northern Garrison? Suppressing the wild joy in my heart, I feigned calm and asked, "Where are you going?" "Husband, I'm going on a long journey. An old classmate has invited me to go north to do business." "North? But I've heard the northern Rongdi tribes are invading, and there's a war going on. Aren't you afraid?" My husband, my worry, in my husband's eyes, turned into overwhelming tenderness. As usual, he ruffled my hair and said with a laugh, "I'm not the Prince of Junbei. Why would I have to go to war just because I'm heading north?" I feigned ignorance and smiled. Then I pulled him aside and gave him a few instructions. At that moment, outside the courtyard, Ainyo from the same village respectfully said to my husband, "It's time to set off." My husband gave me a deep look and handed me a dagger inlaid with gemstones. "Wait for me to come back." With that, he mounted his horse, whipped his reins, and rode away. The horse's hooves kicked up a trail of dust, thick and dense, splattering across my face, making my image as the delicate, fragile wife all the more convincing. Only after my husband had ridden far into the distance did I wipe my nose, dry the tears I had so painstakingly squeezed from the corners of my eyes, and whistle toward the outside of the courtyard. Soon, 2 tall, burly, and rugged men appeared just beyond my courtyard walls. "Boss," I waved my hand, signaling the 2 to rise, "pack up the valuables and get ready to flee." 3 years ago, while patrolling down the mountain, I picked up my husband, Song Xingzhao. At the foot of the hill, Song Xingzhao was an exceptionally handsome man. Even our Qingfeng village's beauty, Liu Yue, couldn't compare to 1/10 of his looks. Having grown up in the mountains with little exposure to the world, I was momentarily foolish and dazzled by his beauty. After rescuing him, I settled him in the village at the foot of the mountain and took care of him tirelessly day and night. Liu Yue said I've gone mad, claiming that bandits saving people is unheard of. I retorted angrily, "This is a deep-laid plan. Once he wakes up, I'll kidnap him to be my bandit husband." Liu Yue sneered repeatedly, "A plan? More like lust has clouded your judgment." I didn't understand the words, but I could guess they meant she was calling me foolish. But I don't care. My father said that as bandits, we ought to live it up at least once in our lives. After all, with our lives hanging by a thread, who knows what tomorrow might bring. So I planned to use this one chance to live it up on him. I personally went up the mountain to dig up herbs, crushed them, mixed them with saliva, and applied them to his wound. But when I woke up the next day, the herbs had somehow disappeared without a trace. I persevered and continued to prepare the medicine for him. Yet the next morning, the same thing happened again. God knows, during those days when he was applying the herbal medicine, I was truly parched with thirst. Fortunately, heaven rewards the diligent. After half a month, he miraculously recovered. The first words Song Xingzhao spoke upon opening his eyes were to ask me, "Who are you?" I grabbed his arm, my eyes shining. "Husband, it's so wonderful that you're not dead." Song Xingzhao eyed me suspiciously for a long time before finally pushing my hand away uncomfortably. "I know you're not my wife," he told me seriously, "but you saved me. I should repay you. Just name what you want, and I'll give it to you." I grumbled in annoyance. "What I want, you won't allow. What you allow, I might not even want." Talking about repayment, what a scoundrel. Even as I said this, I still took care of his injuries without complaint. Song Xingzhao, with his handsome looks, quickly became well known in the remote countryside. Many girls in the village would come to see him under the pretext of bringing him food. Every time a girl brought him something to eat, I would make a bowl of scallion noodles and set it before him. "Eat this." Fortunately, although Song Xingzhao was picky with his food, he knew whose favor he had to curry now. I fed him scallion noodles for half a month straight, nourishing him until he was fair and plump. That day he suddenly came to me on his own and asked, "If I become your husband, can I stop eating green onion noodles?" Oh, I forgot to mention, his leg was injured, so he couldn't walk for the time being. I nodded, yes. He hesitated for a long moment, then suddenly sighed and said, "Then let's get married." I suppose my expression at that time must have been just like when I was a child, riding a wild boar and galloping through the village, radiant with joy. After that, he stayed in the village to recover from his injuries, and I stayed behind to keep him company. We spent many shameless days together, until that day, suspicious figures suddenly appeared in the village. Liu Yue said they were from the northern garrison king's army. Those people always lingered outside my house, yet showed no hostility. Not only that, but whenever I was short of something, what I needed would always mysteriously appear at home. His suspicious behavior made me start to question my husband's true identity. Judging by his demeanor, he exudes an air of nobility far beyond that of an ordinary wealthy family. I instructed Liu Yue and Tu San to secretly investigate. Only then did I discover that the husband I had been doting on was actually the renowned prince of the northern garrison. He is the official, I am the outlaw. It is only natural for him to kill me. I must run. Yet, as soon as I stepped out of the village, Song Xingzhao caught up with me, carrying a medicine basket on his back. "Are you abandoning me, my lady?" A sense of guilt welled up inside me. Although I am a bandit, I am not without morals. After much deliberation, I decided to stay, holding on to the belief that since I had ruined her innocence, I must take full responsibility for her. That stay ended up lasting 2 years. A few days ago, I heard of the turmoil of war in the northern lands. The Rong and Di tribes invaded, but the court had no capable generals to deploy, and the national treasury lacked sufficient funds to sustain the war. As a result, both the Ministry of War and the Ministry of Revenue were driven to despair. Where could one find a commander who not only knew how to fight and save money, but, most importantly, was unafraid of death? I had a suspicion at the time that the choice would likely fall upon Prince of Zhonbei, Song Xingzhao. Unexpectedly, within just a few days, the news arrived. Song Xingzhao had received the emperor's command to lead the army into battle, and since he didn't want to reveal his identity to me, he came up with this clumsy excuse to leave. But I had long been aware of all this. 3. Tu San was very efficient. In just half a day, he had packed up everything in the house: pots, pans, inkstones, brushes, and even Song Xingzhao's belt and wooden hairpin were all taken. The main idea was to leave the place empty, leaving nothing behind. Take these things to the town, sell what you can, and distribute the rest among the brothers. Remember, don't let anyone notice you. Tu San was beaming with excitement. With these, the brothers in the village will have enough food for 3 years. Boss, you really have such foresight in cooking. I guess he meant to say foresight. If Liu Yue knew how much the boss made on this trip, she'd probably be overjoyed. Liu Yue is the second in command of the village. After my father left, Liu Yue and I managed the village together. Unlike the old village chief's practice of robbing the rich to help the poor, I advocate for self-sufficiency. So since I took over, Life in Qingfeng village has been quite tight. The brothers haven't seen many good things either. Liu Yue often advised me that bandits should do what bandits are supposed to do, but I always felt that one day, perhaps all of us could come down from the mountain and live a stable, peaceful life. After you finish your task, return to the stronghold immediately, distribute the silver among the brothers, disband everyone, and from now on, live a peaceful and stable life. Chief, why is this? You've endured 2 bitter years by Song Xingzhao's side, and the brothers have long wanted to bring you back. Tu San and Liu Yue have been secretly contacting me for 2 years. I was always afraid that a single misstep would let Song Xingzhao discover my identity. Now that I no longer need to hide, I am naturally overjoyed. However, I let out a sigh. Take me back. It's not that simple. If I return to Qingfeng stronghold, once Song Xingzhao returns from the war, given his temperament, he will never let me go, so I must completely sever his hopes, making sure he can never find me in this lifetime. That night, I set a fire, burning down the small courtyard where Song Xingzhao and I lived to ashes. Half a year later, a new paper goods shop appeared in the capital. I transformed myself, going from the leader of the Qingfeng stronghold to the shopkeeper of this store, to stand out from the other paper goods shops in the capital. My newly opened store not only sells funeral paper and joss paper but also offers a service to visit graves and burn paper on behalf of others. In the capital, those wealthy families, to demonstrate their filial piety, would line up to hire my people to perform mourning cries at such occasions of funerals. Therefore, although my shop hasn't been open for long, it has gained quite a reputation. As the hands-off boss, I only need to bask in the sun in the courtyard every day, passing the time leisurely, but for some reason these past few days, my eyelids have been twitching incessantly. I tried everything from pasting talismans to taking folk remedies, but my eyelid kept twitching like crazy, day and night. Tu San said it meant a great disaster was coming my way. I snapped at him, calling him a jinx, but who would have thought that Tu San's ominous words would actually come true? The officers and soldiers suddenly rushed in through the back door while I was lying on the rattan chair, basking in the sun. A shadow suddenly fell from above, blocking my sunlight. Are you the shopkeeper? I opened my eyes and saw a fierce-looking official staring down at me from above. These visitors came with ill intentions. After years as a bandit, I still have that sharpness. I rose with an awkward smile. Good day, sir. I am indeed the proprietor, the official said disdainfully. A fine young lady like you, how did you end up in such an unlucky trade? I felt displeased. How can a profitable trade be considered unlucky? The clerk and his entourage took a stroll around my courtyard, then concluded, seems like someone who values cleanliness and has good taste, fits the requirements of that distinguished person. I was baffled. What kind of distinguished person would have such high standards for a shop like mine that sells funeral supplies? What a piece of work. The minor official's expression improved a bit as he continued, you're in luck. That nobleman's wife has passed away, and he needs someone to go to the grave and mourn. Hearing this, I thought to myself, this person is indeed here because of Tu San's reputation again, so I prepared to call for Tu San. But the man interrupted me. The nobleman specifically asked for you. Me, but my voice isn't loud, and I can't even cry. I wanted to refuse, however, the petty official drew his gleaming sword. Smiling coldly, whether you go or not is not up to you. I'm utterly speechless. I've seen people forced to become outlaws, but never seen someone forced to visit a grave. I accepted in humiliation. Before leaving, the clerk added, someone will come to fetch you around midnight. Remember to wear plain clothes, or if you offend the noble, no one can save you. I was curious about what kind of noble person could be so arrogant and unreasonable. Soon, there was news. The noble who sought me to mourn at the grave was the grandson of the Duke of Dingwa. I heard that his beloved wife had recently passed away, and he had gone mad, rambling all day, insisting that his wife was still alive. The Duke of Ding, feeling sorry for his grandson, sought out Taoist priests and Buddhist monks to examine him. They all said that he had unresolved karma from a past life and must fully express these past connections to free himself from resentment and obsession. So the Duke of Ding sent someone to find me. After hearing this, I was quite moved. What a pitiful soul. Tu San cracked melon seeds with a silly grin. Boss, you just don't get it. These kinds of storylines are usually for the rich and noble. Isn't that the same old trope as that timeless tale? What's it called? Liangzi and Zhuzi. It's Liangzhu. Oh, right. Liangzhu. Tu-san handed me half of the melon seeds, frowning with worry. Boss, why are they making you go to the gravesite in the dead of night? How creepy is that? That nobleman was extremely generous, offering a very handsome reward, but his demands were truly bizarre. He wanted me to accompany him to the graveyard at midnight. Although I had been a bandit for many years, I still had a strong aversion to traveling at night. Not to mention going to a graveyard in the dead of night, but, the temptation of gold, I forced down the unease in my heart and feigned calm, saying, I haven't done anything wrong, so why should I be afraid? At that moment, I had no idea how serious the situation was, but it wasn't until that night, when the Duke of Dingwa's carriage took me to the desolate wilderness, pitch black and desolate, under the vast sky, a massive tombstone stood directly ahead. Carved prominently on the tombstone were the words, Beloved wife Kueus grave. Damn it, how come this deceased wife shares the same name as me? I never believe in coincidences. Upon seeing that name, my first instinct was to look at that noble person. Before I could turn around, that person spoke first. My wife is jealous. If you look at me, she might get upset. Hearing the voice, I truly breathed a huge sigh of relief. That hoarse, low voice was definitely not Song Xingzhao. Song Xingzhao's voice is gentle, clear, and very captivating. Besides, there are far too many people in the world with the same name. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. I comforted myself like this. I took the yellow paper out of the basket. I placed 2 lit candles in front of the tombstone and was about to kneel when the person spoke again. Sit and cry. The lady never cared much for formalities. Sitting and crying at a grave. This is the first time I've heard of such a thing. But since the client has a request, I naturally comply. I sat down. I burned the paper offerings while that person stood behind me. Although I couldn't see him, the faint scent of pinewood from him was carried by the night breeze, lingering at the tip of my nose. It was rather pleasant. Song Xingzhao also carried a faint herbal scent, which he picked up from gathering medicinal herbs in the mountains every day. On others, such a smell would often be obscure and unpleasant, but as he was infected, there was a faint and elegant fragrance. Seeing that the person remained silent, I spoke first. Your wife must be an excellent person, right? The person hesitated for a moment and did not reply. My heart sank immediately. Scumbag, talk about deep affection, it's just another show-off. The eldest son of the family who hired Tu-san to mourn last time was the same. On the day of the grave visit, he didn't even know what his own father liked to eat and mistakenly brought the wrong offerings. I suppressed my displeasure and was about to continue asking. He suddenly said, I've been injured and can't remember clearly. I coughed guiltily and deliberately changed the subject. Since you're so deeply devoted, why did you ask me to cry for you? I regretted it as soon as I asked. Wasn't that just sabotaging my own livelihood? Fortunately, the nobleman didn't mind and just chuckled softly, saying, My wife prefers men who are brave, heroic, and manly. Crying and sobbing will only annoy her. What a henpecked husband. The wind blew recklessly across the open ground, making the flames of the yellow paper flicker wildly. I quickly stepped back and awkwardly explained, The wind is a bit strong tonight. Would you like to wait for me in the carriage? No need. If I leave, she will be unhappy too, I muttered to myself. And this is called not remembering clearly. I remember it quite clearly, afterwards. I always deliberately tried to find topics to ease the awkward atmosphere between us, but he spoke very little, unlike Song Xingzhao, who, though usually reserved, was full of sweet talk in bed. It often made me so embarrassed that I wished I could hide myself under the blanket, yet he continued to tease me with a straight face, all while carrying on with what he was doing. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but blush. Just then, that person suddenly asked, Miss, why is your face so red? Me. Why ask so many questions, so talkative, roasted by fire? Oh, he responded and then fell silent again. After a moment, he suddenly spoke up. My wife doesn't blush when she warms herself by the fire. I have never visited a grave as difficult to approach as this one. When I visited my father's grave back then, I only said one thing, in the future, I will lead my brothers and make sure we become good men. Right after I finished speaking, I was nearly struck by a bolt of lightning, but today, this grave is even more dangerous than my father's. The bereaved man pulled me aside to pour out his feelings for his deceased wife. Not only did I have to chime in with a few words at any moment, but I also had to force myself to shed tears. Finally, as dawn was about to break, my visit to the grave was finally over. But then the bereaved man said to me, "I'll send someone to fetch you again tomorrow night." By the time I turned my head, he had already gotten into the carriage and left first, me. After returning to the shop, I caught up on sleep with a vengeance. I dreamed that I had returned to the courtyard where Song Xingzhao once lived. I lay on the bed as Song Xingzhao returned, covered in dust from the road. He scolded me, "You little heartless thing, didn't you promise to wait for me?" In my dream, of course. I didn't give him a pleasant look, complaining about his late return while also saying that I had deceived him, and he had deceived me, so we should be even. But Song Xingzhao wouldn't let it go. He unfastened his own clothes, pointing to the tooth mark I had left on his collarbone before, and asked me, "What about this? How do you account for it? You took my innocence, yet you abandoned me. Shen Kueya, what about me did you find unsatisfactory?" I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yes, I admit it, back then, with Song Xingzhao, it really was more like I forced myself on him. But didn't he also give in half willingly? Otherwise, how could a weak woman like me have pushed him down? Besides, when we were intimate, we were truly in perfect harmony. This kind of thing should be mutually beneficial. Now he's actually trying to pin it all on me. In a fit of anger, I kicked him off the bed. "Go to hell, you're the official, I'm the bandit. If I don't run, am I supposed to wait for you to catch me and chop off my head?" Shen Kueya, Song Xingzhao suddenly changed his demeanor. He lay in a pool of blood, covered in wounds, yet his eyes were fixed in my direction, asking me over and over, "Do you really not want me anymore?" I woke up from a dream. After spending 2 years day and night with Song Xingzhao, even in sleep, a certain bond had formed, but ever since he went off to battle, I never inquired about his news again. I don't know why. Clearly, he is the Prince of Northern Stability who pacifies the region, yet after I arrived in the capital, it seems I have not heard of him again. I truly feel uneasy in my heart, so I chose this day to go to Yong'an Temple to offer incense. Surely, the Buddha must have a way to put my heart at ease. My father often said, as bandits, we really don't need to believe in gods or Buddhas. After all, it's better to rely on yourself than to beg others. I've never believed in gods or Buddhas either, but I still want to come and pray. If the gods can hear my words, I hope they at least let Song Xingzhao live. The temple was sparsely populated. I went in, offered incense, and then fervently prayed before the Buddha. "May the Prince of Northern Garrison live a long life. Amitabha. May the Prince of Northern Garrison be blessed with many descendants. Amitabha. May the Prince of Northern Garrison never remember me. Amitabha." The incense ash trembled slightly and fell into the incense burner. It seemed the Buddha had answered my wish. In high spirits, I not only placed a piece of broken silver in the donation box before leaving but also took the opportunity to ask the old abbot for a fortune slip. Once, Song Xingzhao and I had also gone to draw a fortune slip, and the message on it read, "Offspring will flourish." I immediately crumpled the slip. Saying it was inaccurate, Song Xingzhao shook it 3 more times. Each time the result was a promise of numerous descendants. He even sighed with emotion, saying it seemed that in this lifetime, I was destined to bear him many children. At that moment, I almost revealed my true nature and broke his bones. Bear him many children, let him dream his grand dreams. Now this lot, it's not about having many descendants, but rather, may Paya be safe and sound. My heart is filled with anxiety. This lot is indeed a good one, but I just don't know if it's accurate. Just as I hesitated, I caught sight of a tall figure stepping into the carriage in front of the temple. That figure, I rushed forward. Song Xingzhao, Tu-san was originally waiting for me at the temple gate. Now that I've finally come out, it's as if I've gone mad, chasing after a carriage. He hurried forward to stop me. "Boss, he's not that man." My heart was in turmoil. Pointing at the departing carriage, I insisted, "I've slept with him for 2 years. How could I mistake him?" Tu-san opened his mouth, hesitated for a long while, then said timidly, "But the Prince of Zhunbei died in battle half a year ago." The Prince of Zhunbei was dead, and I was the only one who didn't know. Since I came to the capital, I had never heard anything about the northern lands, nor had I heard of the Prince of Junbei. At first, I hadn't even noticed. Now that Tu-san said it, it seemed as if everything had become clear, because half a year ago, the Prince of Junbei died, and the war suddenly entered a state of peace talks. The court did not make this matter public, only quietly sending people to retrieve the body. So during my time in the capital, I had never heard any news of him. The unease in my heart was instantly replaced by an indescribable emotion. I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. I just often found myself lost in thought, sitting dazedly in the courtyard. It was as if I were back in that small courtyard with Song Xingzhao, and he asked me, "How do you want to live in the future?" I replied, "I don't think about anything, I just live like this. Now I am alive. But not in the way I want to be." That nobleman sent someone to find me again. He said he dreamed of his deceased wife and insisted that I accompany him to visit her grave again at night. The night was heavy with fog. I put on my cloak, lit a lantern, and followed the noble. Sitting one behind the other in front of the grave, she visited me in a dream last night. The noble suddenly spoke. I was already in a daze, and hearing his voice now, I suddenly felt the illusion that we were both souls adrift in the same vast world. I curled the corner of my mouth and asked, "What did your wife say in her dream?" "She was angry with me, telling me to live well." I sighed. "And how did you know she was angry? If she weren't angry, she would have come to chop me with a knife by now." I was shocked. I truly didn't expect that this nobleman's wife would also be such a fierce woman. I couldn't help but feel a bit of sympathy for this nobleman. So I asked sincerely, "If I may ask, how did your wife pass away?" Xiaohu bot prevents document piracy. For bookfinding bots, choose Xiaohu, stable, reliable, and hassle-free. The nobleman's tone was quite sorrowful. After a sigh, he whispered softly, "She was set on fire by bandits and burned to death in her home." Strange. Could it be that even in the capital, there are bandits who enjoy setting houses on fire? Before I could figure it out, the nobleman suddenly asked again, "What about that girl? Why does she look so worried today?" My mind was completely occupied by his words about being burned to death at home. Hearing his question, I blurted out without thinking, "My lover is gone. The nobleman hasn't sought me out these past few days. I heard he went to see a doctor." Indeed, love, hate, anger, and obsession are all ailments, and the heart sickness is the hardest to cure. I hope the nobleman can overcome the grief of losing his wife. I spent a few quiet days in the shop. Liu Yue wrote to me, saying that the brothers in the village have all settled down and started proper livelihoods. I burned the letter he sent. After settling the brothers, half of my wish has been fulfilled, yet I still feel something isn't quite right. 2 days later, Tu-san brought back another letter from Liu Yue. "Boss, a letter for you from that vixen Liu." I opened the letter. The letter contained only a few words. "The capital is in danger. Return at once." Huarong Town. A carriage stopped in front of Liu Yue's noodle stall. The carriage looked luxurious, unlike those used by the local gentry in the town. A bowl of scallion noodles. The man's voice was hoarse, sounding somewhat indifferent. After disguising herself, Liu Yue came to the town and opened a noodle shop. Green onion noodles, a dish the brothers of Qingfeng village have grown up eating and are most skilled at making. "You've been coming to our humble shop for noodles for half a month straight. Do you like the taste of the noodles?" The person in the carriage was silent for a moment. "Not exactly, it's just, the flavor of these noodles is very similar to what my wife used to make." Liu Yue's heart gave a sudden leap. She glanced discreetly into the carriage, but the curtain was drawn tightly shut, making it impossible to see the person inside. Scallion noodles are a simple home-cooked dish, not difficult to make. Why doesn't the gentleman ask his wife to prepare them for you? "My wife has passed away." Liu Yue suppressed the unease in her heart, her hands slowing as she kneaded the dough. Before long, a bowl of scallion noodles was ready. A servant picked up the bowl and respectfully handed it to the person in the carriage. The carriage curtain was lifted, revealing the man's handsome face. The moment Liu Yue saw the man clearly, her face turned deathly pale. This man, it was unmistakably the Prince of Junbei, who had died in battle half a year ago. "Shopkeeper, why are you staring at me like that? Do you know me?" The person inside the carriage spoke again, his words carrying no hint of probing but rather sounding sincere. Liu Yue quickly averted her gaze and said awkwardly, "We're just ordinary folks running small businesses. How could we possibly know someone of your stature? Is that so? But the sandalwood hairpin in your hair seems to be mine." Liu Yue was the cleverest person in the village. While the other kids in the village were still playing in the mud, he was already outsmarting the elders. The letter he sent me said the capital was dangerous and urged me to return quickly. But logically, if he truly believed the capital was dangerous, he should have told me to flee, not to return. After all, if I go back, I'll only cause trouble for him. I thought it over and felt that this letter was suspicious, so I called Tu-san over and voiced my concerns. Although Tu-san is rough around the edges, his mind works quickly. He quickly discovered the problem. "Boss, the cunning fox Liu said the capital is dangerous, but the people we deal with here can be counted on one hand. We've never offended anyone, so where's the danger? People we deal with in the capital." I carefully counted them. Tu-san's morning services had indeed brought him into contact with some wealthy and noble families, but they were all brief encounters, ending as soon as the weeping was done. What remained was me, and the only one I had dealings with, I suppose, was that noble from the Duke Dingwa's residence. I reorganized all the details of my interactions with this nobleman in my mind. That nobleman's deceased wife shares the same name as me, has a similar personality, and even the way she died is exactly the same as how I died. Tell me, how could such a coincidence happen? Exactly, boss. Do you think that nobleman's deceased wife might actually be you? I'm still alive, damn it. I glared at Tu-san with annoyance, but suddenly, something seemed to flash through my mind. The nobleman's deceased wife and me. A chill instantly swept through my entire body. I have not been without doubts about the nobleman's identity. From his appearance to the deep connection we formed, the numerous coincidences and details have made me suspicious countless times. But one is the prince of the northern garrison, and the other is the grandson of the Duke of Dingwa. How could these two be the same person? So I convinced myself, time and time again. Now, I have to reconsider this matter. I asked Tu-san to find a way to obtain a portrait and all the information about this Duke Dingwa's grandson. When Tu-san returned with the portrait, my heart was in my throat. Boss, this nobleman lives a reclusive life, and there's very little information about him, even in the capital. Few people know of his existence. My heart sank. In the capital, there are so many nobles that you could throw a bun and hit a dozen of them. How could no one know of him? A young master from the Duke of Dingwa's household. This doesn't make sense. I couldn't wait to open the portrait. To my disappointment, the man in the portrait was wearing a bamboo hat, making it impossible to see his exact features. But the more it was like this, the more uneasy I felt. I decided to make a trip back to Huarong town. There were some things I had to confirm for myself. It was already 10 days later when I returned to Huarong town. I left a mark in the town, so the brothers from Qingfeng village would come find me as soon as they saw it. However, I waited for 3 days, and not a single brother came to meet me. It wasn't until the 4th day that an unexpected guest suddenly arrived at the inn. I was stopped at the door by the nobleman, who was still wearing a bamboo hat and dressed in white robes, his figure noticeably thinner than before. "What brings the shopkeeper here?" "I came to visit relatives." I regretted it as soon as the words left my mouth. The nobleman didn't give me a chance to reconsider and pressed on. "Visiting family. Is the innkeeper from Huarong town?" I had a vague feeling that today's nobleman seemed somewhat different from usual. His words were more direct. "The address has also changed to shopkeeper, instead of the previous miss. Perhaps I'm being overly sensitive, but at this moment, my heart is already filled with anxiety." I looked at him and asked directly, "May I see your face? Are you sure? I've known you for some time now, yet I still don't know what you look like." How presumptuous of me. Only my wife is allowed to see my face. "Are you my wife?" Damn, he's even more presumptuous than I am. I try to avoid him. When I encountered him in Huarong town, I already had a bad feeling in my heart. This person is most likely Song Xingzhao. As for why he went from being the Prince of Zhunbei to the grandson of the Duke of Dingwa, I have no idea. And since he found me, yet did not seek revenge, that is something I still cannot figure out. But one thing is certain, the brothers of Qingfeng Stronghold have likely met with misfortune. I spent silver and used connections to inquire about the whereabouts of my brothers. Only then did I learn that Just before I came to Huarong town, these men had all been thrown into prison for theft. How could my brothers possibly steal? There must be some mistake. Tu-san, inside the government office, put on a flattering smile and raised his voice to argue with the bailiffs, but he had cried so much in the past that now, whenever he spoke, there was an inexplicable tone of deep sorrow. The bailiff, with a dark expression, directly pulled out a few drawings and threw them at Tu-san. Take a closer look, are these things theirs? I leaned in and saw that the drawing clearly depicted some objects. A wooden hairpin, a worn-out belt, all things I had taken from Song Xingzhao back then. These items are all from the palace, each bearing its mark. These thieves, they don't even have the sense to pick their targets, always going for the valuables of the nobility. They're just asking for trouble. Tu-san was dumbfounded. What kind of nonsense is this, coming from the palace? Yet, I keenly caught another piece of information. A noble, there's a noble in Huarong town. I slipped a hefty piece of silver into the constable's hand, looking at him with eager anticipation. The constable weighed the silver in his hand, quite pleased with my thoughtfulness, so he leaned in close to us and whispered. I heard his from the capital. Some duke's son from a noble house came looking for his wife, only to find his belongings stolen. A duke's household, find a wife. These words flooded into my mind all at once. In an instant, I felt as if I had been struck by lightning. Heavens, that nobleman who lost his wife is really that bastard Song Xingzhao. I discussed it carefully with Tu-san. No wonder those pawnshops wouldn't take those things. They were official property. They knew all along these weren't ours. And that wooden hairpin, pitch black, looked no different from a fire poker. Who the hell would have known it was actually sandalwood? The more I calculated, the colder my heart grew. Back then, the things we didn't sell, the brothers just thought were worthless, but who could have guessed that those very worthless things turned out to be the most valuable of all? If before I was only worried about Song Xingzhao suppressing the bandits and wiping us out, at this moment, I'm afraid he might even kill me and scatter my ashes to the wind. Boss, our brothers are still locked up in prison. What should we do now? I know that Song Xingzhao is lying in wait, just waiting for me to walk right into his trap. In my heart, I'm glad he isn't dead, but I deceived him, played him for a fool, and even ran off with his fortune. Given the Prince of the Northern Garrison's vengeful nature, he would never let me off the hook for all these misdeeds. Let me think about it. I ended up thinking about it for the entire day. That night, the Yarman sent me a severed finger. It was bloody and still warm. This finger belonged to Liu Yue. When we were children, we sneaked down the cliff behind the mountain together, and he accidentally fell, breaking his little finger. Later, although the finger was reattached, there was a scar at the joint, exactly like this severed finger. I was extremely panicked inside. Song Xingzhao, is this a warning to me? Night, I found the private residence where Song Xingzhao was staying. He seemed to know I would come, with the lamp still lit in the dead of night and 2 cups of hot tea placed on the table. When I pushed the door open and entered, he showed no surprise at all. As soon as I stepped inside, I dropped to my knees with a thud. Song Xingzhao paused his tea drinking and turned to look at me. Liu Yue and the brothers are innocent. All the fault is mine. Kill me or cut me to pieces. Do as you please. In 18 years, I'll be a hero again, my father said. A bandit must never show cowardice. Even in death, one must make a bold declaration. I kept my father's words firmly in mind, even if I was walking into a trap today. I had to make Song Xingzhao understand that I wasn't afraid of him. Sure enough, Song Xingzhao's gaze toward me shifted. It went from calm at first, to surprise, and finally to anger. He stared at me coldly, as if trying to bore a hole through me with his eyes. I swallowed hard and continued to argue. Speaking of which, you haven't exactly lost out these past 2 years. Back then, to save you, I climbed so many steep cliffs just to gather herbs for you. Others only needed medicine for 3 days. But you used it for a full half-month. He glared at me. You mean the gelsemium you mixed with your spit? If it weren't for your gelsemium, the wound on my leg wouldn't have taken half a year to heal. What, gelsemium? Isn't that the miraculous herb for stopping bleeding? Fine, the herbs may be worthless, but you eat my food, wear my clothes, and use my things. Even if I were to charge you rent, it wouldn't be too much to ask, would it? Song Xingzhao looked at me with a half-smile. Then how do you account for sleeping with me? I was left speechless for a moment. This matter really can't be calculated. After all, he was an innocent man, and I had tainted his purity. I deserved to die. As I said before, do whatever you want, kill me or cut me to pieces. I don't know which of my words angered Song Xingzhao. He suddenly lunged at me like a madman and bit my lip. Shen Kueya, do you even have a conscience? Are they that important to you? They've fought through life and death with me. I can die, but they must not come to any harm. When my father handed Qingfeng's stronghold over to me, he repeatedly urged me that everyone in the stronghold were unfortunate souls who had joined out of hardship. Even if it costs me my life, I must protect them. Song Xingzhao, I'll settle my grievances with you, but I beg you, spare them. This is the first time I've ever asked Song Xingzhao for a favor. In the past, when I was with him, I always thought of him as a romantic debt I owed, not something that required too much sincerity. So, in our interactions, I couldn't help but be a bit spoiled. This time, I am sincerely asking him. I hope he will not make things difficult for the brothers of Qingfeng village. Song Xingzhao remained silent for a long time. I couldn't figure out what was on his mind. Finally, I sighed, took out the dagger he had given me from my sleeve, and stabbed it into my chest. I was unconscious for 3 days. When I woke up, Song Xingzhao was by my bedside, his eyes red-rimmed. Before I could say a word, he scolded me fiercely. They're fine. The tension in my heart finally eased. Just as I was about to ask where they had gone, Song Xingzhao said, 6 months ago, I used my military merits to request an imperial favor to grant amnesty to the people of Qingfeng village. But when I returned to find you, he didn't finish the rest of his sentence. He just glared at me, over and over again. I feel deeply guilty. Indeed, 6 months ago, I set our courtyard on fire and faked my death to escape. I'm sorry, I apologized hoarsely. The moment the dagger pierced my chest that day, I thought I would truly die. But Song Xingzhao held back half an inch. The dagger, having torn through his palm, only its tip pierced my chest, a little deeper, and I would have truly met the king of hell. I can never forget the look in Song Xingzhao's eyes at that moment, terrified and helpless. Like a child who has done something wrong. But it was clearly me who had done wrong. Song Xingzhao settled me in his private residence in Huarong town. Tu San came to see me twice. Seeing that I was safe and sound, he wiped his tears and wailed as if mourning at a grave. Boss, if you die, the brothers will have no hope left. Me, by the way, boss, Liu Yue isn't
repay her. So I asked her what she wanted, and she actually said she wanted to marry me. How could I, the prince of the northern garrison, marry a country girl from the wilderness? I turned her down, but she wasn't angry. She still took care of me, with her by my side. The assassins who were after me failed in their repeated attempts to ambush me. I knew those people wouldn't give up, but given my current injuries, dealing with them would be quite difficult. The people in the military don't know my whereabouts, making it hard for them to come to my rescue in time. After much thought, I proposed marriage. I had thought that such a coarse woman would never capture my heart, but as time went by, I began to discover more and more of her endearing qualities. For instance, when she made rice soup, she would secretly add honey to my portion, or how she would go up the mountain in the dead of night to gather medicinal herbs for me, never letting me know even if she returned covered in cuts and bruises. Since I was young, everyone around me has been kind to me only because of my status. Even when they were kind, it was to seek credit. But only her, she treated me with all her heart and loved me. I'm completely smitten. By the time I realized it, it was already beyond control. I love the faint, delicate fragrance that lingers around her. I also love watching her knead dough beside me, cheerfully preparing food for me. I prefer holding her in my arms at night, having each other. Unfortunately, my wounds have healed. Those people from the military have found my whereabouts. I have to both stabilize the military and prevent her from discovering my identity. However, the good times did not last long. As I had expected, the northern border launched a war. The court had no capable generals to deploy. The emperor thought of me immediately and issued a secret decree, ordering me to lead the expedition. I have tried time and again to confess my true identity to her. The deeper the affection grows, the greater the fear becomes. I thought, if I could return alive, I would tell her everything. If she blames me, I will bear the blame and seek her forgiveness until she is willing to forgive me. However, man proposes, God disposes. 1 month into my campaign, tragic news arrived. She was dead, burned to death in a fire set by the bandits of Qingfeng stronghold. I fought with relentless fury and finally achieved victory in the war, when I returned to the village. All that remained of the courtyard where we once lived was a pile of ruins. I searched desperately through those ruins, hoping to find her remains, but after 3 whole days of searching, not even a trace of her ashes remained. It was then that the hidden poison within me was stirred. My memory is fading, about her. About every little detail of us, I am gradually forgetting. My grandfather took me back. At that time, I only remembered that I had once deeply loved someone, but she had died. Day after day, I drifted through life in a daze. My grandfather sought out many physicians, but none could cure me. Later, a venerable monk from Yongan Temple came to see me and told me that my karmic bond with her was not yet severed. The abbot gave me an idea, to build a cenotaph for her, so that we might continue our unfinished fate. I naturally agreed. I miss her. I want to know, who exactly is she? Has she really left me behind? At that time, I heard there was a gold paper shop in the capital that could fulfill many of the bereaved's requests. I specifically asked for their shopkeeper to accompany me. I don't know why. The moment I saw her, it was as if some familiar scenes flickered intermittently in my mind. But when I tried to grasp them, I just couldn't hold on. I desperately wanted to seize those memories I had forgotten, so I began to frequently ask her to go out with me. Gradually, I realized that only when I was with her could the blank space in my mind be filled. My memory is slowly returning. Then I received word that someone had found items I used to wear in Huarong Town. I hurriedly made my way to Huarong Town. The items were quickly recovered. But I didn't recognize any of the people who had them. The prefectural assistant told me that those people were all mountain bandits in the past. Their leader was called Shun Kueya, who disappeared without a trace half a year ago. The second in command is named Liu Yue, and she is currently in Huarong Town. Liu Yue doesn't seem like a mountain bandit, she more resembles a scholar, yet he was making a living by running a noodle stall. I had a bowl of noodles at his place. The taste of that bowl of noodles felt very familiar, as if I had often eaten it before. I go to his noodle stall every day. My intuition tells me he must be acquainted with the one I deeply love, but he is extremely cautious. No matter how I try to probe, I can't get the slightest bit of information out of him. Just then, the officials from the government office came to ask me how to deal with those who had stolen my belongings. I left the choice to that person named Liu Yue. He thought about it all night. The next day, he came to me and told me that he could tell me everything from the past, but he had one condition. 10 days later, she came to me in a hurry, pleading for mercy on behalf of her brothers. I don't know why, but a sudden anger welled up inside me. I spoke to her with cold and harsh words, but when that dagger pierced her chest, all the fragmented details I had only heard from others suddenly flooded my mind in that instant. Shun Kueya. She is Shun Kueya. I frantically grabbed the dagger in her hand. That dagger plunged into her chest. Blood, so much blood. I have seen countless dead on the battlefield. I thought I had long grown indifferent to life and death, but only at this moment did I realize that I couldn't bear to let her leave me. I stayed by her side, sought countless renowned physicians, and gave her the best medicines, only hoping she would be safe and sound. Fortunately, the wound wasn't deep. She is fine. The day she woke up, I was both excited and terrified. I was afraid she wouldn't want me. Yet, she took my hand, her eyes filled with tenderness. I knew that this time, I would never give her another chance to leave me behind. Shun Kueya.